Method 1. Adding the decal directly to your object's texture. Method 2. Using a second UV map to mix it with the texture. Method 3. Using a separate object as a decal. If you stay to the end of the video, I will be showing how to change decal colors and also make them look like they are emitting light. So let's get started. Go to UV editing. I already have mine unwrapped. Then go to UV, and choose Export UV Layout. On this method, we will use this layout as a guide, to add the decal to the original texture of the box. Save the file. Open this file on your usual image editor. I will use Photoshop. But you can use free software like GIMP or whatever you like. I will put this layout on the top layer with some alpha transparency, to know where I need to put the decal. Then import the box original texture, and place the decal on top. When exporting the image to replace the original texture, make sure you disable the layer that has the layout. Now we have the same texture the box had, but with the decal already included. All we have to do is to refresh the textures by pressing Alt+R on the Shading tab. This way it even keeps the bump, normals and roughness form the original texture, looking more like it is painted in the surface. Another way to add your decal directly to the texture is by painting it. Select the node that has the original texture, go to Texture Paint tab. On the brush options, go to Texture, and create a new one. Then go to the Texture Properties tab. Open the decal that you want to paint. Go back to the brush settings, and change the mapping to stencil. Hold Shift, right mouse button and drag the mouse to scale it. Hold Ctrl, right mouse button and drag to rotate it. Now you can use the right mouse button to move the stencil around. Once in place, just use the left mouse button to paint. You can change the decal and repeat the process all you want. When you finish, remember to save your image, or you will lose the changes. I will revert mine to continue with the next method. Now we will learn how to add the decal directly on the node editor, by using a second UV map. If you go to the Object Data Properties, UV Maps, you will notice you can add multiple UV maps, that you can then use, to have different mappings on the same mesh. I'm editing now the selected UV map, in this case Decal 01. Open the decal you want to use. Select all by pressing A, scale it down and place it on the transparent area or even outside the bounds of the image. Now on the right viewport, select only the face where you want to place the decal. Go back to the left viewport and scale it up to cover the image. Go back to the Shading tab. Add an image texture node. Open your decal texture and mix it with the box texture with a Mix RGB node. We will use the alpha as the factor, to only show the texture behind the decal where the decal has transparent background. I almost forgot to change the UV map to the one we just created. Shift A to add a node, search for UV map node and add it. Select the new UV map and plug it to the decal image texture node. You can change size and aspect ratio to adjust the decal shape and position. Don't worry if you see duplicates or parts of the decal on other faces, we will fix it in a moment. Change the extrapolation to clip to avoid showing or repeating everything that gets outside the bounds of the UV. If you see a thin white border, you can change the interpolation to closest to fix it. You can repeat the process to add multiple decals, each with a new UV map. This method could be a bit more time-consuming or less intuitive than just painting the decals like we did before, but the advantage is that you can move, resize, and even change colors or make them emissive with the node setup. On the last method we will see how you can use a separated object to place decals. You can snap your 3D cursor by shift right-clicking. We will start simple, adding it to a plane surface. To avoid the flickering, we will move it just a tiny bit. Now go to Shading, and create new material. Open the decal you want to use. Connect the alpha to the principal shader alpha. And change the blending mode on the material properties. Now we need to fix the UVs. Now let's try something a bit more complicated. Let's say we want to place it on a curved surface. I'll copy the last material to save time. I'll fix the UVs. Now to place it in the surface. We will use shrink wrap, but we need also more geometry to be able to bend it. First I will subdivide it. Then add a shrink wrap modifier and select the box as the target. Add just a tiny bit offset to avoid flickering. Add a subdivision modifier if necessary and change the shading to smooth. The shrink wrap stretches a bit the texture and it won't work on angles or complicated shapes. So the last method is to steal a part of the surface where you want to place your decal. Select the faces, Shift D to duplicate, then P to separate the selection. With the new object selected, go to Shading. Create a new copy of the material. You could create a new one, but I want to use the normals and roughness from the other material to make the decal look like it is painted on the surface this time. I'll clean the old setup. Now instead of the old texture of the box I will use the decal, but I will maintain the normals and roughness from the old material. Now we will create a second UV map to prevent messing with the roughness and normal maps. As you can see, the decal maintains the same surface deformation than the box, looking more like painted on it. Okay, now the last thing I was going to show you is how to change colors, and also make the decals look like screens or lights. I added a good amount of black and white versions of the decals to be able to play with the colors. When you place a mix RGB node with the color connected to the factor, you can pick your own colors. Note that the alpha is connected to the principled BSDF, and this material also has the alpha blend mode selected in the material settings. The decals can also be used as masks to mix two different shaders and create interesting results. On this case we use it as a factor of a mixed shader to create a contrast between shiny and opaque materials. You can also use an emission shader to give your decals a glowing effect. This is how the original decal looks. Now we will mix it with an emission shader. On this case you can also use a transparent BSDF instead of the principled if you want, or use the principled without connecting the alpha to create the background of the screen. Changing the strength and color of the emission will affect the decal glow. You can also plug the color of the decal to the emission to have the original colors. And that's it for now. I would love to see what you do with this decal pack. If you want, you can post your creations on Twitter and tag me. I will gladly retweet and comment on your posts. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Thank you.